Today I want to talk about different forms of political organization. Anthropologists often divide political organizations into four types, and this typology is what I'll be discussing today. The first and least complex type of political structure is called a band society. Band societies are typically very small and are made up of between 30 and 50 people. Band societies also tend to be egalitarian. In other words, there are very few differences in status and wealth between people. Members of band societies tend to make a living by food collecting, sometimes called hunting and gathering, rather than by food production, the raising of crops or animals. Leadership in band societies tends to be quite informal. Older men may sometimes be respected for their experience or their knowledge of hunting, but they hold little power and have no more wealth than anyone else in the band. It should be said that there are very few band-type societies in existence today, as most have found themselves subordinated to the states that claim control over their territories. Examples of band societies include the San of Southern Africa, which you see here, sometimes called the Bushmen, the Mbuti Pygmies of modern-day Congo, and some Australian Aborigines. The second type of political organization that we'll discuss are tribal societies. Tribal societies tend to be food producers rather than food collectors. Food production strategies tend to be more productive than food collecting, so populations among tribal societies tend to be larger. Like band societies, tribal societies tend to be relatively egalitarian, with few differences in wealth and power between members. Also, like bands, tribes tend to have only informal leaders, usually elder males who are respected for their wisdom and intelligence. Despite this respect given to tribal headmen, they have very little power to enforce their suggestions, and decisions are typically made by consensus. One example of a tribal society are the Yanomami, who live in the rainforests of the Amazon. Here is a typical Yanomami village that you see here. And you'll note that all members of the tribe live in the very same dwelling, so there's no difference in wealth between the people who live right in this house. Another example of a tribal society are the Maasai in Kenya and Tanzania, one of whom is this man. This man is a Maasai warrior. His name is David Rudisha. He's from Kenya, and he just happens to be the reigning Olympic champion in the 800 meters. Okay, the third type of political organization that we'll talk about are chiefdoms. In chiefdoms, political authority is likely to reside in a single individual, such as this Hawaiian chieftain. In chiefdoms, we see the emergence of a more formal political structure where individuals and families have the authority to make judgments, punish wrongdoers, and settle disputes. Moreover, chiefdoms often integrate multiple communities under a common authority. Chiefs will often serve to redistribute the surplus food and goods produced in the chiefdoms, often through communal feasts. Chiefs and their families are often highly venerated because of the power they exert. In this image, we see the funeral of a chief named Tattooed Serpent of a group called the Natchez, who lived on the lower Mississippi at the time of European contact. A French explorer was shocked to see the extent of the Natchez people's devotion to Tattooed Serpent. Mothers, in fact, would throw their newly born infants in front of the funeral procession to gain favor with the ruling family, and many of the chief's servants and family members were actually executed so that they could accompany the chief, presumably accompany the chief into the afterlife. Okay. Finally, we come to state systems of government, which no doubt is the type of political organization with which we're most familiar. State systems come in many different forms, but all states have certain characteristics in common. First, all states claim to possess a monopoly on the use of violence within a given territory. States collect taxes, raise armies, and have permanent bureaucracies. States create systems of laws and redistribute wealth throughout the communities they control. State-level societies are supported by intensive agriculture that makes possible specialization in labor practices and the accumulation of wealth and power. States are stratified, and there are significant differences in the amount of power and wealth accumulated by individuals and families in state-level societies. Examples of state-level societies include ancient Egypt, and you see clearly the stratification that is going on in ancient Egyptian society, and modern nation-states like North Korea and the United States. So, these are the four types of political organization used by anthropologists to describe societies. bands, tribes, chiefdoms, and states.